So Zoro won PPG's Regional in Knoxville, and I'm going to go over each of the cards and give my analysis on why I think each one is in the deck. First up, we have Otama, which on play gives your opponent's characters minus 2,000 power during this turn. The effect is amazing, and the fact that this card is a 2k counter as well makes it even better. We're using this card to reach taller characters with our jet pistol, as well as shrinking tapped characters, so we can reach them easier with our smaller guys. Next up, we have Curly Dedan, which allows you to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and then choose one red character with a cost of 1 or less and add it to your hand. So this card is amazing in the deck because we have so many 1-cost characters, and if we hit an EZO, then we can use that EZO to find another character which we can also play. So essentially it's one body that turns into 3 bodies. So there's no reason to run any less than 4 of in the deck. And the fact that this card has counter as well makes it extra good. Next up, we got our second 2k counter, Jozu. The effect doesn't really matter. The only thing about this card is sometimes we're playing it on our 4-Dawn turn to basically have a body on there, which also gets a free swing. It's not really defendable, and most of the time it's just a 2k counter, but we can also search it with EZO, which makes it definitely a 3 of in the deck. Next up, we got Vista. KO one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 or less. The card has 1k counter, which makes it really good, and the fact that there's so many laws in the meta right now makes the card basically an essential 2 of in the deck at this point in the meta. Orlumbus being a good target too when you combo with Otama or Gordon, and since we're running so many minus effects in the deck, 2 of a Vista seems really good because it's most of the time going to see its value. Next up, we got Makino, which rounds out our 2k counters. You rest this character, and it gives one of your 1-cost characters plus 3,000 this turn. So basically, we're using this card to get even more value out of our game plan and our 1-cost characters. When your opponent has no guys on the board, you can use this card also basically as a free blocker a lot of the time because your opponent is forced to kill it, so you stop getting value out of it. This is a non-negotiable 4 of. The card is amazing with the game plan we're trying to run with this deck. And the card is so good, we're even running Magras, which has the same effect, except it's an on-play instead of resting the character. This would be more copies of, but sometimes it doesn't get the value that you're looking out of it because you don't have a 1-cost to play. Especially early in the game, if your hand isn't the best and all you have is a Magra, and playing out a 1-2 that does nothing can feel really bad. I think 2 of is a very good spot for this card. The combo with it to be able to put out a 7k attacker with the buggy and then kill with the teach makes Magra almost an auto-include in the deck. Speaking of auto-include, because we're running the Whitebeard package, we're definitely going to want to run the 4/5 blocker Marco, because on KO, you basically pitch a Whitebeard card from your hand and you can revive it, which makes this card absolutely insane for playing in the last few turns when you can basically block the last attack your opponent has for free when we have so many Whitebeard cards that actually don't have counter. So it's basically a good engine to get rid of some of the bricks in your hand. And to get a lot of these cards, we have EZO, which can search for a Whitebeard pirate from the top 5 cards. Because we're running Whitebeard pirates, basically non-negotiable 4 of. The card's really good. You can combo it, or it gets comboed with Dedan and can pull out a Marco. A lot of the times we're looking for that Marco. I would say even 90% of the time we're looking for that 5-cost Marco. But sometimes we need a Fiery Doll or a Fire Fist, and this card can grab those too, which makes it even better. Next up, we got Buggy. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal 1 event card from your hand. So if you play Buggy and you hit, you're really happy about it. If you miss, you're kind of upset, but it's not the end of the world because we're running not that many events. We're basically replacing Sunny-kun with this card, so we're really happy when it hits. We're like, if it doesn't. It can't be KO'd by Slash for literally no reason, which makes it even better. This is an automatic 4 of when we're running this many events. Next up, we got Bomenko. This is more of a tech option. but since we're running more of a minus package, this fits in right with our game plan of going wide while also minusing stuff so we can reach them easier with free attacks or our jet pistol and fire fist. And also this card can attack the things that it minuses, which makes it even better. And yeah, the card's good, easy to have. I don't think there's any reason to run any more. Maybe you could cut one for an Otama. Next up, we got my favorite card in the deck, Marshall D. Teach. You may trash one red character with a 4,000 or more draw card, and this character gains 1,000 this battle. Where this card shines is in the Whitebeard matchup. So you have a buggy on the field, and you have a Teach on the field. You can Magra boost that buggy, and that buggy's probably not going to have another attack for the rest of the game because you have to commit so much Dawn to it. So you basically kill with your Teach to get a card in your hand, which has a lot more chance of actually helping you in the game than that buggy that's going to be on the field for the rest of the game, probably not doing anything. I don't think you could add more than 2 in this current meta because the card is so easy to kill. So a lot of the times you're just like hoping you can discard it with your Marco or a Bad Manners. But I love the card. It's very Glass Cannon-like, a little high rolly, but I think that it's way too good into Whitebeard not to play, and there's so many Whitebeards out there. Next up, we got 5 cost Marco, K up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 or less, and on KO you may trash an event from your hand, you may play this character from your trash rested. This is the most broken card in the deck. We can use it in combination with our leader ability to get a free 7k swing every single turn, and it can't be killed. And it gives you a higher base than your leader, so there's literally no downside to this card in this deck. If anything, this card should almost be restricted, but since it's not, we're going to play 4 of it, because it is the best card that was introduced in OP-03 in my opinion. Next up, we got my second favorite card in the deck, Gordon. You may return this card to the bottom of your deck. Give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 3,000 during this turn. The only downside of this card is that it doesn't have counter, but since now we can reach a 9,000 with our jet pistol, it makes the card ridiculous. We can even take our opponent's ace, minus it to 4,000, now we're swinging at it for free with our buggy. So I would love to have 4 of this. It looks like we're running too many bricks as is. They can get clogged up in your hand. But if you were running 4 buggies, I could definitely see 4 Gordons. This card is amazing. Love it. Next up, we have our events. First up is Gum Gum Red Hawk. Your leader or one of your characters gains 4,000 during this battle. Then KO one of your opponent's characters of 4,000 or less. And the trigger gives your opponent's leader characters minus 10,000 during this turn. So I see that we only have 3 guard points, which makes this card a little iffy. But a tech into Law, it would be really good. You can prevent the Law from using their leader ability in the early game, and if the Law is careless, you can almost win the game on the spot by denying them their leader ability. So while I do question whether, like, why this card should be in there over 4 guard points, I could definitely see a case for it, especially in particular matchups or when your opponent leaves a blocker up on the field. I can see that there's a couple cards in this deck that like people aren't expecting and they don't have good game plans for, and I think that gives Zoro an edge in some matchups when your opponent is not ready to play around certain things. Alright, now we have the most broken event. You all know it, you all love it. It's Rad Beam. K1, your opponent, if you have less than 2 life, one of your guys or you gets plus 4,000. And the trigger is the same as guard point, where you get plus 1,000 during the turn, which can win you the game. So basically, if this card is in your hand, it can just win you the game on the spot because it gives you so much utility for 1 Dawn. It need to be restricted, but because it's, we can play 1 of, we're going to play the 1 of. Next up, we got Fire Fist. You may discard an event from your hand, KO one of your opponent's characters for 5,000 or less, and one of your opponent's characters for 5,000 or less, and one of your characters for 4,000 or less. I don't know why you'd want to kill your own guy. And then the trigger lets you kill your opponent's characters with 5,000 or less. So this card is really, really good, especially in this meta right now where there's a lot of blockers. There's cards that you have to get rid of, even though it's not insanely good to get rid of Olympus with it. Sometimes you just have to. Sometimes your opponent will play 2 guys that you really need to get rid of, and 1 is over 5,000, so you can use Otama or Gordon or even Blamenko to combo with this card. So you get a ton of utility with this card, especially when you're killing for max value, which is basically using a Gordon to combo with this card and killing a 8,000 and a, or a 7,000 and a 5,000, which is really, really good. Next up, we got more tech options. I think this is more of a Whitebeard tech option. Fiery Doll, your leader gains 4,000 attack this turn. And then the trigger is the same as Red Hawk, where you're giving minus 10,000 to a guy. Sometimes this card just wins you games. I feel like a lot of times you're just pitching it for Fire Fist fodder, which is fun to say, and discarding it with your kick course. But sometimes your opponent just doesn't have what it takes to get over the top of Fiery Doll. And yeah, I guess that's why it's in the deck, because whether it be the trigger or the effect, sometimes it just wins you the game. Next up, we got Bad Manners Kick Course, our one and only OP-05 card in the deck. You may trash a card from your hand, give up one of your leaders or characters 3,000 this battle. And then the trigger gives one of your opponent's leaders or character minus 3,000 for this turn, which is extra good into, say, something like Rebecca, where they're trying to restand a card. This is definitely a one of. There's a lot of bricks in this deck, so I can see why you would need something that boosts your defense. I think the main reason it's in here is to surprise your opponent a little bit. Yes, we would like to get bricks out of our hand, but when you're tapped out, sometimes your opponent doesn't realize that you're going to be able to basically put out an event for nothing, and it can really mess up some of their attacks. Next up, we got Guard Point. Your leader or one of your characters gains 3,000 this battle, and the trigger is same as Rad Beam, where you're getting 1,000 for the turn. In the late games, sometimes you just have to live one more turn and you win the game. Sometimes your Teach is the only thing on the field that you need and you have to protect him. And this card gives you a lot of value when it comes to protecting a card or yourself for minimal commitment. Though I would like to see 4 of this card. With how much aggro we're putting down, with the Magras, I can definitely see why this is a 3 of. Great card. And finally, we got Gum Gum Jet Pistol. Looks like Jet Pistol is finally back in the meta, with targets like Orlumbus nowadays that totally destroy Zoro. Even the Blocker Law, this card is finally gets to see its value with great targets to hit, and the trigger is also broken. Sometimes we just need to round out how many events we have with Buggy, and since we have the adequate amount of defense and we don't want to run too many Fire Fists because of how demanding it is on our hand, Jet Pistol is definitely a sweet in between, with like being balanced between being able to kill something of value and not be too taxing on your hand. And now that we're comboing it with Gordon, now we can reach a 9,000 attack guy, which is really, really good. So all in all, I really love the deck. I think this was good in 3.5, and I think it's good now. And unless you're playing a bunch of Rebecca, you should definitely try this deck out in your meta and in your local and see how it works for you, because it's definitely a lot of fun to play. There's a good amount of skill expression there, which I think is sometimes lacking in One Piece with decks like Katakuri and Whitebeard. So if you're really good at the game or you want to get better, this is definitely a deck that rewards you for putting time into it and getting good at the nuances of the game. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. Have a good rest of your day, guys. Peace.